We like talking about everything growth related. At Badass Mavericks, we tackle fears and doubts head on. Overcome obstacles and thrive in all areas of your life. Here's your host, Brian Dewald.
So welcome to the Badass Mavericks. Today, my guest is author and speaker and certified badass.
Oh, and you could add certified.
Right?
Giving me my credentials.
And great friend of mine, Mrs. Dawna Hetzler. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Got some fun stuff to talk about today. I want to hear, some of the things that make you tick. I want to hear, I call it your famous story. I know you've got other things between writing books and all of these other things, but I want to talk about your bravery and your courage at some point a little bit. I want to talk about some of the books you've written, and then just generally what makes you such an awesome person and get people to know you.
I'm an awesome person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's jump in.
Yeah.
Cool. So just a quick about. BAM is what we call our show, Badass Mavericks.
Okay.
And you probably know this since you've got the pup named Maverick, but a maverick is someone who is unconventional and independent and possibly doesn't think or behave as others do.
Really?
Really. So as I say that, do you relate to independence or unconventional or think or behave differently than others? Like, what does that make you feel?
Oh, not at all.
Right?
Very in the box.
I know, right? That's exactly why you're on the show, right? I'm always looking for people just like you to be like, not buck the system, but just, free thinker and
Yes.
all kinds of fun stuff. So,
Well, and I've always said it's because I'm Sicilian.
okay.
And so my husband, David, who's my high school sweetie, and you can already tell I'm like, I have here to use my hands. If you tie my hands, I will not be able to speak. But he'll always say to me, the opposite of what he wants me to do.
Oh,
So that,
this is the you'll.
yeah, because as soon as he says, you need to do this, I'm like, oh, heck, we do. Right. So that whole independent thinking and free-spirited or creative spirit. I also think of my dog, Maverick.
Sure.
Because you were the inspiration for that. And he's a husky, he's a rescue. And he had a really rough start to begin with. And so we thought Maverick was a really good name to get him, kind of rethinking about, his freedom, his independence, and to let him be a husky. Just, huskies will do what they want to do.
I get it.
And it's got to make sense to them too.
Sure.
So when I'm like, come boy, he's like, why should I come? Is there a treat?
Yeah, you got something in it for me?
Yes.
Well, I know, it's super sweet. When I showed up, he just wags his tail up.
right?
Lets me rub his ears or rolls his eyes back.
Oh yeah, you had the magic scratch for sure. But
sweet.
I do think of the two of us. I mean, we're Mavericks. Yeah. So many other people are Mavericks and independent and just not going with the herd. Right. You have to kind of think differently and be outside the box, if you will. Yeah. I also think of God as a Maverick.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of God as mighty warrior. Is it Exodus where they actually call him God is a mighty warrior. So he's a Maverick too. But look, he created the universe. He said, let there be, and there was.
Right.
And so I think so much being
Give me goosebumps.
yeah, business owners that, we have to kind of speak things into being too. And we're created in his image. So not that we could just say, hey, I want to, be rich and we're rich. Sure. But what we say definitely affects the outcome, the way we think. And yeah, you have to kind of follow that role of the creator.
Right. Love that. So you mentioned kind of how David who's, I don't know why this stuck with me, but one time you called him your favorite hubs and all of a sudden, I don't even say hi to your favorite hubs. It's not like I say hi to David, but what's super cool, and I want to dive into this a little bit. So you guys just celebrated your 35th wedding anniversary.
35 years. And then this April 2025 is going to be 40 years of going steady.
That's insane.
So yeah.
You guys must have both been very illegal back. So what do you have I love the relation, learning from others, right? And I have been together for almost as long, right? We've been married 20 something years and 23 this year and together 31.
Can I give you an applause? That is, no, that's huge.
Especially we started dating when we were 15.
Yeah, I was 15 and David was 17. Yeah,
right.
Brennan 18.
Right. So I love learning from others. You know this about me, but I love learning from people that I can really that I look up to for things like it's got more experience, or if I'm looking for business ideas, I want somebody that's got a bigger business than me or something like that. So like from a relationship standpoint, like do you have any advice for anybody me in particular? Like when I do these, it's really selfishly just to learn more,
Sure.
but the audience is listening. So like anybody that's in either a short term, a long term, or looking for long term, like give us a couple of secrets.
How long is the podcast?
Right?
This is
a lot of debate.
like marriage.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean,
Sure.
it's one of the most beautiful things and one of the toughest things.
Agree.
You know, when you get together with somebody, whether, you know, it's just a partner, you get married, that bringing on that relationships brings its own set of problems.
Sure.
But it also allows you to grow in such a deep rooted way through all those working out those problems. I would say one of the best things that helped with David and I is figuring out what is behind the argument or the attitude or the dysfunctional cycle that we find ourselves in.
Sure.
So what's behind that? And one of the best pieces of advice I got was to take a picture of David when he was like in elementary school. And if there is an argument, then look at that and go, okay, what is the great giant behind what is being said? Because we can get in this dance, you know, of this cycle that's just not good. It's not productive.
Sure.
And so if you can find what's behind that, for example, like with me, when I was a kid, I got lost at a horse racing track and I have this abandonment issue. You know, I couldn't find my parents, some strange ladies taking me to try and find my parents. And those little tiny things, I call them childhood giants. Those little things can stick with you.
Sure.
And so David kind of knows that trigger with me. If I feel like I'm going to be abandoned, I just want him to rescue me. I want him to come alongside. So I think he can now see like, okay, this isn't what she's saying or being upset about. It is a little girl in her is trying to figure out how to be okay. And so using that language to, you're here, I've got you, I've got this. I see that you're saying one thing, but I think it's this. And so it's kind of like putting on your psychology hat just a little bit, but just walking those tough spaces and then seeing what's behind the surface of stuff, going deeper. Does that help?
Yeah, getting deep. Like I learned once, like to anything, right? Whether it's a goal or an argument or something, like the why behind the why behind the why behind the why behind.
Right.
Like what's the ultimate freaking why?
Yes, and that can take some time.
For sure. Yeah, and a lot of times, like we don't even know what that is at the moment, right? Like if I've had those experiences myself.
Right, when you just like freeze or you're like, oh gosh, or something said, or like you get upset or whatever that is. And then later, like the next day, I'm a processor.
Sure.
Like the next day I'm like, oh, I see it was this. You know, it takes time. But as you work on yourself and as you do this, you notice it quicker.
Sure.
You know, it's just like anything with training. So
right. I like that. So shifting gears a little bit. So like I have no idea where this podcast is going to go, right? I was at a church event almost a year ago, and it was like writing out some goals and aspirations and ideas. And at the time, like I had a really great 2024. Here we are, January, the 7th, 2025.
Right.
And like, I didn't crush it financially or anything. We did just fine, but like I had a hell of a year in terms of health and mindfulness and these kind of things. And like you asked me like a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this, like who's the audience for this? And I didn't really know how to answer that. And I'm like, me, like selfishly, like I just want to, like I'm not all that creative. So I'm like, all right, what if I just but I can talk to people, right?
Sure.
So what if I just go talk to my friends that are ultimate badasses, right? And by the way, we can say bad words on our show.
Okay, good.
It's my show, so I get to say it.
Badass, I like want to kiss my biceps.
You should,
Then,
right?
You know, like,
right. So like with that in mind, you asked who the audience was, and I thought it was a very intriguing question. But like, how does your mind work to even ask that? Or what were your thoughts? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. But like, if you were building a podcast, and I know you're working on some stuff, like when you came up with your target audience, what did that look like? And I'm just curious as to how that popped in your head.
Well, so I run a nonprofit called Jericho Girls.
Yep.
And we come alongside women and we support women in all walks of life. So if you have no faith, you're an atheist, you're way down the road, wherever that looks like, we want to meet you woman to woman where you're at. And so when we started doing conferences, we being the board of Jericho Girls Ministries, we had this great brain dump. And I've got all these creatives, and, some are good at accounting, and some are good at, coming alongside women, and some are just artists and creating and drawing. And so we all came together to figure out who is the one person. If God dropped one person into that room for the conference, what would she look like? What would she look like, and who do we want to speak to in that moment? And it's easier to keep your eye on that one person so that your message, so when you think of that one person, the message can go to the masses, but that one person was this very specific woman that we sketched out. What did she look like, down to the color of her eyes, hair, so we could visualize her. And as we visualize her, we could speak to her, but then it would, obviously, the Holy Spirit would, touch everybody through that.
Yeah.
But it's really just, like dwindling it down. It's kind of like in our business too. Who's our ideal client? Or who do you want to work with?
Sure. Our friend Mike Wood talked about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, and I know he had asked me, and I'm like, my ideal client? And I'm like, my mind is going, Florida or Colorado? Because I sell both, and I'm like, I'm still processing. Hold on, please, please with that, because it's like, what I want to sell here is very different than Colorado, because I want to sell waterfront properties,
which you are, and your beautiful waterfront property. So interesting story just for the audience. So like and we're going to get into this a little bit later. I knew of you from Colorado.
Yes.
And we've got mutual friends,
Yeah.
McNeese's, that said, oh, you guys have to connect with Dawna. You guys have a place there. We got a place, they have a place there. And I'm like, interesting. All right. I'm like, send me your number. And so we started chit-chatting. So, here we are 2,000 miles away from home and got to be connected through our little paradise here in Cape Coral, Florida.
Right.
And so fun that we get to hang out, here in the wintertime or whatever. But I always thought that was a really fun part of the beginning of our friendship.
Absolutely. And who do you know that, connects you to somebody else?
Right.
I mean, we're both connectors.
It's true.
And so to be connected like that was super
fun.
cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then to see how life is, unfolding for us together.
Agree.
And kicking butt in life.
That's right. Yeah, kind of fun. So I'm a car guy, right? And I have this theory about firing on all cylinders, right? It was a coaching assignment from my dear friend Hunter in California years ago, and I still think about it. And it was basically like write a letter to yourself and do it. So I fired on more cylinders last year than I had before, just in terms of personal growth and professional. We're growing our company and spiritualness and marriage, like all the stuff. Dad still, like I still pay attention. My son's 21, so he doesn't need me that much, but I still like to grow where I can. Sure. So when I think of when I think of growth, for me, it's if I'm slacking in one, this is just me personally. If I'm not the best version of myself, I'm not the best friend, I'm not the best husband, I'm not the best dad, I'm not the best business owner, I'm not the best loan officer, I'm not the best lots of things. So I try and get all of them. Like I love shooting for everything at the same time, personally. So that's what I think of when I think of growth.
Yeah. When
I say growth to you, what does that look like, or what do you think of?
I think it depends on the season that you're in.
Okay.
And how you want to grow. There are times where I'm like, yes, I need to hit on all cylinders. There are days where, and this is going to be more of because David's in a previous life a motorcycle racer, right? So he did road racing. Yep. And he has a line that he was always nervous before a race, but the minute he got on the bike, he was just like everything calms. And that's the crazy part to me, is because now you're going out on the racetrack with all these crazies, sometimes in the rain, we've been out racing in the rain with slicks because it would start raining while he was, racing on slicks. And then that's not good tires for the race.
Sure.
And so you're not nervous going out there. Once he got on the bike, everything was. And so for me, like growth sometimes is I have to just get on the bike today. I just have to get on the bike. And so making myself get on the bike and then getting to work, So I think it depends on somebody's season, where they're at in life. But I agree. You got to hit on all cylinders. You got to be all on it. One thing that has really transformed my business is just inviting God into my business.
Okay.
And I shouldn't even say that it's inviting him in because he invited me in, right?
Okay. Sure.
But in 2008, we kind of went from high, David being this high-end home builder. We're traveling a lot. He's racing, doing all these things. And then the Great Recession hit.
Yep.
And we were starting homes, and I was, in real estate at the time. And so I'm trying to revamp my business, going from high-end home builders and working with, custom home buyers.
Sure.
And then going to investors and first-time home buyers and totally switching gears in business.
Okay.
And so, I was hitting on all cylinders at that time.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, everything came to a screeching halt.
For sure.
And there were days where I'm like, I just need to get on the bike. I just need to get on the bike. I need to do my thing. And so for growth, for me, it was, okay, what does getting on the bike look like today? How does bringing David along in this look in this morning?
Yep.
And then bringing more of God into my business. Because I feel like I was very spiritual at the time. Sure. But when you're forced to really pray, like, please sprinkle the manna on the grass today that we can eat, right?
Sure.
It's different. And so what I started doing in that time was just really inviting God into the business and saying, look, you blessed me with New Dawn Realty. You blessed me with this. And how can I be a good steward of your business? And thank you for letting me be the CEO of what you've created with me. And I watched, Ryan, it was crazy. I watched in a declining market, my business just ramp up. Well, it was amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is give a lot, which I know you do as well. Like you give your time, you coach, you do all these things, but giving, especially when it hurts.
Yeah.
So during that time, I spent a lot of time giving away what we were bringing in. Is I'm like, if my faith is what I say it's going to be, I'm going to really test this and give it away.
Huge.
And so that was huge. I was giving away a ton of money, which made my lip quiver everywhere. Says I'm like, no, I got to make more.
Right.
But it was such good time that grew me, in my faith and in my business. And then I really learned during that time how to be a strong businesswoman.
Okay.
And to put on a different cap. So just circling back to your hitting on all cylinders, absolutely. But there are times when you're going to get up and go, I just need to get on the bike today. Or I just need to run this morning to get my mind right. I need to drink a gallon of water today. Or, I need to be on. I need to push myself to do this stuff. But yeah, you can do it. You can do it. If you're in that space, whoever's listening, if you're in that space where you're just having a hard time getting on the bike, just get on the bike.
Right.
And everything else will come together. And of course, you got to get out there and do it too. Sure. You can't just sit on the bike and then rev it.
But that's like that's one of the hardest things, right? It's like, it's just getting on, right? Like the hardest part about going to the gym is getting in your damn car and driving there.
Yes.
Right? The hardest thing about going for a walk is the first step. After that, it's easy, right?
Yes.
I walked 1,861.5 miles in 2024 and didn't hardly do anything, right? And it's the single step that is the first one, right? Like it doesn't, I don't know. There's something to be said about just getting on the bike. I love that.
Or get a husky. You have to
Yeah, right?
them every day, even in the snow.
Especially two of them, right?
It's easy here.
It's awesome.
Going back to Colorado in the snow, I'm like, no.
So, okay, shifting gears a little bit. If you were to take a new course or class, what would that be on?
I want to... So I'm thinking real estate is the first thing that came to mind. Are you talking personal or business? Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
They all kind of intertwine anyway.
Sure.
I do a lot of land out in Colorado, water rights, mineral rights, land sales, big acreages. So I do want to get a land accreditation. But one thing on the personal note I've been kind of playing with is, speaking of our mind and getting on the bike and all that stuff, is NLP. Have you heard of NLP? And yes, so neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
I think. No, I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay.
And there is the person who created this has classes. So on the personal level, I'd like to take that more.
Okay.
And it's more about, the way you think and being able to mirror people in a healthy way and to connect with people.
Okay.
And so I think that you and I are very good at that. Sure. But I would love to sharpen that skill a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then the third thing, I'm a class person. I love to learn.
Okay.
I'm a lifetime learner.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I'd love to tactical train some more and really get better at my fine tuning and tweaking. And we've had the opportunity to shoot together.
That was a lot of fun.
And you were amazing rock star.
Wasn't as good as you.
Oh no, that's not true. You and I had really good groupings and we're high beaming. No. But we were the ones who...
You were the only ones that got 100 out of the course, right? High fives for us. Yes. I love the idea of learning more. And it's really interesting when you brought up the NLP. There's another show that we did with a young lady named Dee Woodman, who's our family therapist.
Yes, I heard that show. It was wonderful.
And she talked about neuroplasticity.
Yes.
And it's how your brain literally grows if you're doing something to advance or hard, or I look at it as something hard, right? Like, and something hard could be just going for a walk at 5:30 in the morning when it's cold out or whatever. But your brain literally increases in power when you're doing that. And the opposite if you're not, right? It literally shrinks as you're not feeding it.
Yes.
Good stuff. So,
and making those pathways, I think,
yeah,
is part of being a badass maverick. Like if you're expanding all the time and growing those pathways, you might come up to an opportunity in business or in life or whatever and say, oh, I never thought of it that way, because you are building those neural pathways.
Some dumbass could start a podcast. So like
You're looking at me.
No, I'm pointing to myself. I'm pointing to me. All right, so this one's kind of fun. If you were to teach a class, what would that look like?
I'm big on women empowerment and getting women to really believe in themselves and love themselves. And so it would be something along the lines of, you were born for such a time as this, that you were sent here for a purpose that only you can fulfill, that only you could do. And I would teach that to men too, because so many times we get caught up in our careers, in, being a father, a husband, and we're so super focused on that, we tend to lose sight of what we were brought here for and our purpose. So that scripture is from Esther, the book of Esther, where she is asked to approach the king and she might die. And she tells, her uncle, look, or maybe as the uncle told her, I think the uncle tells her, look, you might have been put here for such a time as this. She says, okay, if I die, I'm going in.
Right.
But I love that because only Esther could have done what she did in that specific time, place, that very moment. And I feel the same about each of us, that each one of us is so uniquely special and different that, sure, God can use various peoples to get his purposes done, but man, he would love to use your creativity the way he designed you for the purpose specific just for you. So something along
those lines.
Yeah. I had never thought about it, but I'm like, I think that would be super cool, is that you were made for such a time as this.
Yeah. Interesting. I love that. Couple kind of fun questions here. What's something that you would look back and if you could meet yourself 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years ago, what's some advice you would give your younger self?
Keep open hands. Keep open hands.
Yeah.
Don't grasp so tightly at tongues. So my word, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I do a word for the year.
Gosh.
And my word for this year is unfold. Let life unfold. Now, of course, I'm a doer.
Sure. Same.
Just tell me what to do and I will go do it. I am a go-getter.
Yeah.
But I tend to do too much sometimes. And I often wonder, God's got this great plan and here we are on this journey and I'm like, over here, I'll do that and I'll do this and I'm down the road way ahead. But I like to think of God as, there's this path and it's not straight and he lets me do my creative stuff. And so I would say for me, just to leave things with open hands. So if I look back and said, hey, 40-year-old Dawna.
Yeah.
I'm stretching that. It is really 45-year-old Dawna.
I was going to say that was just a couple minutes ago, right?
Yeah. It would be just open your hands a little bit to receive, to let things kind of play out. Do your part, absolutely, but just live life so unattached to the world that you don't need something to happen.
Yep.
And I think that's grown my business too. Because in that time of 2008 where we needed to make transactions happen. There were so many business appointments where I went on a listing appointment and I would say, can you keep this property? Well, I needed that listing, but I was looking at a bigger picture of building a business for the longevity of it. And I knew that listing would be down 2, 5, 10 years, whatever that was.
Sure.
But I would tell that woman back then to just even loosen the grip even more. I felt like I was doing it then, but there was still things like, okay, God, I did good at that. Did I do good? Did I do good? Okay, what can I hold on over here then to make up for what I was open-handed here?
I like that.
So I would just say, let life unfold a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I smiled when you said some fun questions because that's like my playground. I'm like, oh, let's have some fun.
Yeah, here we go. And by the way, I should have mentioned this to you earlier. If there's something that I ask you that's kind of like, let's just skip that one. Fuck it, we'll skip that.
Okay,
so no big deal. Yeah, but
asking me that.
they'll edit all this stuff out, so it'll be kind of fun. So I have this theory on mentors, right? I look for, you and I have talked about it a little bit, like a spiritual mentor. I like a fitness mentor, right? I hired a personal trainer last year. I like to have a business mentor. I've got a coach, a marital mentor, somebody that's got a fantastic marriage that I can look up to, or our therapist type, like Dee Dee, we've seen for ages and ages. I like to learn, and I mentioned just a few minutes ago that like somebody that's better at it than me, right? I want to learn business from somebody that's got a bigger business than me.
Sure.
Does that ring any bells for you? Do you have any mentors?
Oh, I had tons of mentors.
Yeah, give me a couple of highlights.
And I feel like the same way. I used to be on a golfing league, and I loved golf, but I wasn't great at it.
Sure.
So then I took up tactical training and just started shooting the balls when they didn't do what I wanted to. I'm teasing.
That sounds awesome.
One of my mentors is somebody in my field, and she's just a big hitter. And so being around her and other, big hitters, you play up to your golf game, right? So for me, when I would be with comfortable friends and we're just out there having a good time and having a beer on the golf course, like my score was crazy, right? The score would go up, and the goal is to get it down.
Sure.
And so, but when I would play with those on the league who were very in tuned and good, my game, my score got so much better when I was playing with that. So, people in the industry, of course, I hang out with you because everything that you touch turns to gold. So, I try and
Stop that.
rub that off.
This isn't your show. This is Mike.
And then I also did therapy, right? I had a good therapist. And David and I did marriage counseling as well.
Sure.
And then a spiritual director. And I think I talked to you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Is a couple years ago, as a birthday gift to myself, I'm like, I listened to a podcast and heard about spiritual direction. And I thought, I want to learn more about that. I don't know if I need it, but let's see. And so she has been a spiritual mentor to me. And it's been really fun to have her come alongside me and just walk me through certain things I'm struggling with, or, what I'm dealing with. And so she brings me up to that next level. And I thought, I'm doing pretty good spiritually. Yeah. So I thought that I meet with her. Not that she makes you feel that way, but there's just so much work. Like, we're never done until perfection, but I'm like, wow. One of the things that I discovered was I just have a hard time trusting God. And I'm like, I would have never I wouldn't have pinpointed that. I'm like, something's going on. But based on, what I'm doing and how I'm reacting to stuff, she's like, Dawna, do you trust God? I'm like, not as much as my plan. Right? I mean, that sounds like I should scoot over for a lightning bolt.
Right? Okay.
I love you. You made me Sicilian. So yes, she takes me up to the next level spiritually.
Sure.
Those in business, friends that, inspire me, who, get to the next level as well. There's one gal in the land arena that is just super young and smart, and she asks the right questions. And so her and I will meet to collaborate.
Oh, I love that.
Together about land and who we're connected with and how can we put deals together.
Nice.
We do Mile High Exchangers, which is a bunch of commercial and land brokers or investors who come together, and we all come into a room. We're all very successful and say, how can we make a transaction within this room?
Oh, I love that.
So that we can, promote our clients.
Yep.
We don't have to just stick it into a system like LoopNet or CoStar or MLS or any of those to promote the property. But we did it, because we showed up, and we're going to put buyer and seller together and get this deal done. And what? So those types of mentors too. So all sorts of just like you.
I love
lots of people in my life.
it's just so wise to seek big people like that we mentioned that.
And different people too.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
David is a mentor to me because he is such a different thinker than I am.
Sure.
And so when he says something, I have to kind of recalibrate and be like, okay, I didn't think of it that way.
Sure.
So, here comes the sunshine. I'm like,
Or maybe we're in Southwest Florida. We can't be without this.
no, I'm wearing a sweater. It's
Well, it is January, so it could be us. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, I've been in lending for 20 something years, and I've met hundreds, probably thousands of realtors. And there's just a few that stand out. This isn't a real estate or lending show by any means, but I just want to understand a little bit more, and don't share any specific secrets by any means, but like your approach is quite different than most when it comes to the real estate side. And like I said, I've worked with thousands of realtors throughout my career, and there's just a small little handful like you that seem to kind of have an edge, like an advantage somehow. Is that like, and again, don't give away any big secrets or anything, but like, how does that naturally come? Is it part of 2008 and kicking butt through there? Is it just your nature? Do you study, or like what makes you different? Or how are you? I know how you're different. How do you get to be different?
I was like, that could be a bad thing. How am I different?
Well, I mean, like in a great way. I'm trying to figure out, I'm not phrasing it the right way. But you get my, right? But you get my drift, right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
is it something that you set out to do daily or weekly or monthly or annually to grow? Like, is it just I've experienced that you've got, is it a combination of everything? But like, your just approach is just like, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, and during 2008, you really needed that sale. But if you can't let it go right now, you shouldn't, kind of a thing.
Right.
Like, that's not a real common
True.
piece, especially right now for lenders and real estate agents, given what we went through during COVID, right? We've fallen off a cliff a little bit. So like, I don't know. It's just not a real natural approach, I guess.
Yes. And to backtrack a little bit on your question, I do talk to many real estate agents in our industry and stuff, and I'm always open to share because I don't look at it as, someone's taking a piece of the pie and it's going to get smaller. I'm like, we'll make more pies.
Sure.
Like it's limitless what you can do in this business. If you're worried about one pie, you're thinking way too small.
Right.
So I'm happy to share. But my main thing is just helping people, which sounds super silly and an easy answer. But when you really sit down with people and you are interested in their lives and their goals, and I was talking to your wife, Annetta, about this, and because I told her, I'm like, I front load a lot of my business.
Yes.
I try and get a lot of my business done before October so that I can coast a little, come here, enjoy. I still work, but it's not like I'm on all the time. And so one of the things is just sitting down with people and hearing their goals and listening to them. What is it? Why do you need to get across state? Do you need to be across, the country in a week? Do you have 3 months? How can I help meet your goals?
Yeah.
And then we tweak the marketing plan and the business plan and all that stuff to meet their goals. If they've got plenty of time, it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do, but we'll do it next year. If I get somebody who's coming on like we were before an election year, and the market was slow and rates were high and all the things, I had some people who had to come on.
Sure.
Okay, but we have to tweak that plan a little bit because it is a slower time.
Sure.
We can also, if we can wait till the beginning of the year, let's wait till the beginning of the year. And so we just sit with people. I say we, I have a team, but
Right.
I sit with people and I talk with them and I try and match and meet it's about them. Like I make them in a position of strength and make them the superstars.
Right.
And then from there, they have a great experience and they refer people. So it's, to me, it's right.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. I love that. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about, I meet with my team every Monday and we talk about W's and L's, wins and lessons.
Okay.
I like looking at challenges, not as failures, but as lessons.
Yes.
Tell me about a challenge or something, whether it was last week or last year or last 10 years that you've thought of that you've really learned something from.
That's a really good question. And I love how you do the wins and lessons.
Wins and lessons.
Yes. Because I always say, take a look at something, hold it up, look at it at every angle,
Yeah.
and figure out how you can do it more skillfully next time.
Yeah.
Like, don't beat yourself up about it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but there's always great lessons that you can learn. So let's see, what did I have in the last week? Ooh.
In maybe one of the best ones out of the last 10 years. It didn't have to be last week, just in general. What's a good lesson you learned from her?
Yes. I'm going to say the P word. How to be more patient. I hate the P word.
So I got to tell you something real quick. Okay. Annette's trying to get me to do this 21-day fast of something.
Yeah.
Right? And we're in Best Buy last night because my other clicker, I forgot at home. And it took like, not kidding you, 8, 9, 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
As I walked to the thing just to get up there to pay because everybody's speaking to each other and so they couldn't understand. And I'm like, it took me longer to drive here than just, she's like, you need to, that's what you should do for your 21-day fast. Practically. I'm like, okay, honey, I'll try. Anyway, so sorry to cut you off, but I was like, oh my gosh.
That waiting, patience, and, just
Stuff.
it is tough because we live in such a fast-paced society. Like, we got to get done. Attention spans quick, got to be efficient, and just to slow it down a little bit. And yeah.
Help me learn here, Grasshopper.
Yeah, I cannot. I wish I could give you some wisdom, but I am still learning myself. But yes, just to kind of, take control of your mind and, okay, we don't have to do this that quick and, slow it down. And sometimes slowing it down, there's so many things you can see about yourself, out others. You can hear people when you just slow it down and do the patience. So 2 words I don't like is the P word, patience.
Patience, guy.
And then the other one is B word, budget. Patience. I don't like a budget, but I have to follow one, but
No.
yeah, 2 words. But yes, I can't think of anything specific, but there's always something that will drive you, to be more patient. Okay, here's one is I a lot of the times work with a certain type of person who, I don't want to say the type of person, but a certain type of person who talks very slow and likes to cogitate with me, think through things, right? So I'm a fast talker, right? And so when I get a call from this type of client, it's their profession. So I'm not trying to bash somebody, but it's just a totally different perspective, right?
Yeah.
So this type of person will talk very slow. They think about things when we're on the phone. There'll be these long silences. And I've gotten really good at being, comfortable in the uncomfortable silence, with these people. And when I get the call, like, hey, Dawna, you have time to cogitate? And I'm like, sure, I do. All right. So yes, I think patience has really made me a better business person, a badass maverick, because
I gotta do that.
when I am patient, I can be present with that person. I can listen. I can see what's going on. I can see the bigger picture things, and it does so much. So
I need to get better at that piece. The bigger picture I'm just, what difference would it have made if I was home 3 minutes earlier?
yes, and then it'll play in a bigger role later down the road. That's why I say you never want to ask for, patience, because then you get tested in it and it's like, oh, okay, I was patient in line. I'm good, check. And then it's like some big thing you have to wait on for years. And you're like, no,
Yeah, right.
I don't want to do this.
So you've written some books in the past.
Yes.
I am super excited. Like, when I thought about what I wanted to talk about, there was a few things that for sure that I wanted to touch on, and you being an author is one of them. So first of all, where can folks find your books?
Oh, absolutely. On Amazon.
Okay.
And some of the local bookstores in Colorado.
Awesome.
So it's been a pleasure writing, and I write for myself. It's kind of like your podcast. It's like I'm just doing it to kind of put into words what my experience is and what I've done, and I want to kind of remember, the growth and what I've learned. And then if someone buys it and is inspired by it, awesome.
That's cool.
So
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what compelled you to write it? Was it just trying to get your thoughts and your feelings out?
Yeah, just getting it together. The actual first book is called Walls of a Warrior, and we wrote that as, I say we, I wrote it, but I had a group of women that we met as Jericho girls, breaking down the walls of our hearts and getting together. And so I started putting this together in words and kind of teaching it, and groups started to organically form. Well, I want to be a Jericho girl, and I want to start a group, and I want to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And I put this all together, and I really sensed that God was saying, put this in book format, write a book. Yeah. And here's my Sicilian, index finger, like, you got the wrong girl. I got a science degree. I'm not an English major. Sure. Go find someone else.
Sure.
And it was crazy, Brian. One of my dear friends was with me, and we were at this social event. And she came up to me and she goes, I just have to grab you for a second and tell you something. And she goes, and I hadn't told anybody I was writing all this or putting it together. Like, no, David didn't even know.
Wow.
Because I'm like, okay, I agreed. I'm like, okay, God, here's the stipulations, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here comes the lightning bolt again. So here it is. I'll write this, but nobody gets to see it. Nobody gets to know. I'll put it down for you. Like, here's my, and I'm sure Oz got a sense of humor because he created me, right? So he's like, okay, yeah, you just do that. And then we'll take the next step when you're ready. But my friend comes up to me and she goes, you're going to think I'm absolutely crazy. But she's like, I was cleaning the house. I'm like, okay, you're absolutely crazy.
We could stop there.
Just stop there. You're doing laundry. What?
Yeah.
But she said, I was just cleaning the house. And I'm telling you, I heard this voice in my head that said, tell Dawna to write the book.
Holy smokes.
And she had no idea. And so, of course, I started like, like snot crying. Cries. And I'm like, that's confirmation. Like, I have to be receptive to this. I got to do something with it. So I wrote the first one, and the inspiration to it was to empower these women to break down their walls, to have real meaningful relationships, get rid of the surfacey stuff. Let's get to this tough stuff. I know Annetta does a lot of that stuff in your wife Annetta does some stuff like that in her women's groups. And it was good. We found so much healing, and we had these conferences, and there were women who you would have no idea. Like, they looked just, I shouldn't say normal, right? But I mean, dressed and ready and coming to a conference, and then they have all this stuff. And women would come up to me and go, I was held in a cage. 56-year-old women was held in a cage by somebody, by a trafficker. I had this addiction. I had this abuse, like all these things that women would just pour out. And it was amazing. So if you are thinking about writing a book and speaking to whoever's listening on your podcast, right? I'm sure it's going to someone specific that maybe is supposed to write a book. Put it out there, because you never know that one person or how many people. It's the ripple effect. Yeah. And I know that there's plenty of people who heard your interview with Dee Dee and some of your interviews that are just like, God, that so moved me in that particular day. So it's so important to follow your creative talents. So yeah, that was my inspiration on Walls of a Warrior. And that Free to Receive is more about opening your heart to receive. Okay. And it is kind of a story about David and I and our journey. And then in 2017, just when I thought I got over the hump of, like his lost identity and, financial issues and losing our retirement and rebuilding and all these things, we found ourselves in this space of very disconnected and disjointed, and do we love each other anymore? And I was kind of dumbfounded because, I was so busy running and leading and doing my thing that when he's like, hey, something's wrong here. And I'm like, oh, heck no, So that is more of my journey of that, and how I was able to, we got therapy, couples therapy, we were reconnected in a whole new way. We figured out, God, we've been together forever, and we're just learning some inner stuff about each other. And then finally we take this trip to Israel, which was a bucket list for me.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we got to commit ourselves in a marriage ceremony in Cana, where Jesus turned water to wine at the wedding ceremony.
Awesome.
With someone very famous who led the whole group. And so it was very, very spiritual, beautiful, and great. But Free to Receive is that book. And that's kind of my journey. And then how do you open your heart to receive? And then how do you also block it in a healthy way to not receive things that you're not supposed to, right?
Boundaries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the two, and then I'm working on one right now. Are you? Yes, I'm hoping to launch it this year. Okay. I was hoping to write, just like have all this time to write here, and then, time kind of escapes, and I'm like, it'll be written in the time where
it needs to.
Yeah, when I need to put it all articulate. I have all the pieces. I'm just trying to put it together.
Any little teasers without giving any spoilers away?
Yeah, I talked about it just a little bit about how not to have such a grasp on life.
Yeah.
And how to be how to really be a badass maverick or to really be a go-getter in life and yet still let things unfold. Like, what is that dichotomy of really pushing and, you know, letting off the accelerator and pushing and off the accelerator? And what is that? What does that look like? So I think I'm still learning to articulate it in my head, and then also how to put it on the page, and what that, you know, has translated to in my life, and why it's so good to do that. So I'm working on it.
I love
It's
that.
fine.
I love that.
Yeah.
As we sort of get close to wrap things up here, I want you to tell our audience about a time you had to be brave.
Oh. You know my one brave story. You want to talk about that one?
If you're
I
comfortable
have
with it.
lots of brave stories. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
But this one's like kind of crazy.
I think it's absolutely wild. So
Yes.
if you're okay to talk about it,
Oh, I absolutely am.
I know you are. And I don't want to put you on the spot. I know you've got lots of great stories about being brave. So maybe give us a couple of them.
Yeah. Well, this one's, it might take the most time. So
Okay.
let's start there. And then if you have more questions,
I'll end up with questions as we go, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I've heard this story multiple times, but it's still like just
You're talking about the one where I'm staring at a 12-inch knife?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
just like I've heard it how many times I still get freaking goosebumps.
So I thought it was just another average day, right? Going out, doing my work, getting my hustle on.
Yep.
And I went to an open house. I was going to hold an open house, a listing. And literally just had gotten there, got set up, and there was a knock at the front door. So I go and answer the door. Big guy, tatted on his neck, comes in, and I'm talking to him. And so he goes into the living room, and I kind of turn left and go into the kitchen, and there's this island between us, and we're having a conversation, and he's asking all the right questions. And he eventually wants to see upstairs and wants to see, you know, do the rooms work for his roommates and what have you. And so we come back to the stairs, which is by the front door. And as we merge to the stairs, we get in this very tiny space together. It was very awkward. And in that moment, I decided to take the first step.
Good.
And the minute I did, so I make the first step to go up the stairs. The minute I did, I said to myself in my head, Dawna, you just put yourself in a position of weakness. Seriously, you never like go in front of a stranger, just safety wise, you don't.
Totally. And so was this just the spidey sense and the hairs tingling, or like was this part of training that you've had in the past that or was it a combination of all of that?
Yeah, a combination of all. I didn't have like the spiny tingling stuff, but the minute I did it, I was like, huh, yikes. That was not like the doors down here. There's no escape upstairs. And you know, I shoot and I train and all that stuff.
Sure.
So just from that safety training, I'm like, what in the world? You know, like we learned things like yellow alert, you know, to be watching people, never give someone your back, right? All those things. So all those combined came together, and I'm like, I just took the first step.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, recalibrate. So I'm walking up the steps, you know, being Sicilian, using my hands and talking.
You're such a great storyteller because I don't even have to close my eyes, and I can picture all of this almost like in slow motion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So as we're coming up the stairs, and there's a little landing, and then it turns and you go up another set of stairs. So as I'm going up the stairs, I turn to him and I look and I'm asking him questions and talking with my hands.
He's still coming up the stairs at this point?
Yes, he's following me.
Okay.
And as I'm asking him some questions, he asked me about a VA loan. And this is all like having real quick because we're not even ready yet. It's like,
steps.
you know, it's like, hey, you know, what are interest rates and can I get a VA loan and whatever. And so I said, oh, you've served. Thank you for serving our country. And he gets real shifty-eyed with me. And he says, oh, sure. Now I buy intuitions in my gut. So like my gut tightens and I'm like, okay, he is not who he says he is. And I'm like, how did you serve? And he goes, I was a Marine. And then my gut is like, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah.
And
And how many I've thanked thousands of veterans, and they never had that response. Oh, sure.
Right.
Nobody.
It's always my pleasure. It's my duty. Yes, ma'am.
Recognizing us.
Yes, I appreciate that. Or they're very humble and you know, don't want to take the compliment, but never shifty eye, won't look at you. And I'm like, okay, this guy's not a Marine. He's not who he says he is. And so now we're at the top of the stairs And my first thought with training is safety training is make space.
Yeah. Okay.
So we go into the primary bedroom and I'm like, okay, this is not ideal because he's going to be coming in behind me. He's got the door, but he's already behind me.
Sure.
So I'm just going to get on the other side of the bed and make enough space.
Okay.
And as soon as I did, it just all went down. So he lifts up his shirt and he has this knife that was tucked in his belt. Like this, it was a 12-inch knife. Like he pulls out. I'm like, how did he just conceal this knife? So he pulls out this knife and he has this something tethered to his belt. And he's like, this is a knife. This is bear spray. Take off your ring and get in the closet now. And, you know, they say like in those situations, either everything speeds up and goes really fast or things go really slow.
Okay.
So things got slower for me. And I'm like, belly, knife,
Yep.
trying to process like, oh my gosh, you know, I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't think my life was in danger at that moment. And it took me a millisecond to like catch up. And so as soon as he's like, this is bear spray, and he's like making this action of taking something off his belt and take off, the words take off kind of, you know, triggered me, if you will.
Yep.
And so I was carrying on my ankle that day a firearm. And so all the muscle memory, Brian, like it was insane, the muscle memory of training with firearms. And just 2 months prior to this, I had trained with one of my trainers, and it was for an hour plus. It was pull up the pant leg, come out, present, back in, you know, present. And I'm like, I'm good. And they're like, okay, now get on the ground. And, you know, what if your ankle's behind you? How can you get to your firearm? Do you have to shoot like this? Do you have to shoot like... So all these things I had practiced over and over just 2 months prior to this. And so it was just so incredulous how I dropped down everything that I trained, pulled up the pant leg, came out, and as I'm coming out, before I could even present, I'm coming out and he's got the bear spray and sprays me.
Right.
So, of course, when he sees the firearm, his eyes are like, right.
Oh, I picked the wrong lady.
No idea. And so I got off a round and it went right past him into the driveway. So he's like, you know, all this is happening with motion, right? He's like, ah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and get off a round. And so he goes running down the stairs. I take a millisecond to like,
Whoa, what just happened?
holy Toledo, like it was just fired at somebody else, you know? Compose myself as quickly as I could. And I decided to follow him back down the stairs because, you know, you've seen those scary movies where the bad guy always is like, comes back at you. There's more. So I decided to follow him down at a distance at the ready. And I see him go out. And at this time, you know, like it's oil-based bear spray. So my skin's burning. I'm starting to get a little, I'm coughing. I'm asthmatic. So I'm like, oh God, what if I can't breathe? And so I go into the kitchen and I've just got to be able to see. First, if he comes back through the door, I got to be able to see. So I'm rinsing my eyes really quick, firearms right there on the, and I call 911 and I'm still on. My name is, I'm located at, I have a concealed carry license, got a loaded firearm, been attacked by somebody, need police, paramedics, go and lock the door. You know, you'll need to confirm when police get here and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, police do show up and they did confirm, 911 did confirm it was, you know, the police of that city. And so they come in, they rush in. Two male police officers are coughing and gagging as they come in because that
We're still bear spray.
that bear spray, penetrated to the first level. Crazy. And there was a female CSI agent who pulled me out and, you know, got me out of there and just started talking with me and stuff. So it was a brave day.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is that he was caught a couple days later, and you know there's a whole story to this. Sure, yeah. I don't know how much you want to get into, but he was caught 2 days later and is serving 15 years in prison right now. So I can kiss my biceps, right?
Hell yeah.
Badass Maverick. I say that now because, you know, at the time, I take carrying very seriously. Sure. It is an honor to carry a firearm. I train, and there are so many people who are like, thank God that you had, you know, a firearm with you. And I'm like, nope, it wasn't the firearm. It was the training. It was the training that saved your life, right? So the train, I was able to get on the bike. I got on the bike and I showed up that day and I did it. And everything that they teach you, the mindset of, you know, can you defend your life? in a situation where your life is in danger and you say yes, and then the trainers bring out like human looking targets, real pictures, in color.
Yeah.
And then for a second there, I was like, could I do this? You've got to decide, can I do this? If you can't, it is not for you. Don't carry a firearm. Figure out martial arts, or, carry your own bear spray or pepper spray, or, figure out a way. Just be on alert. All the ways that you can defend yourself. It doesn't matter to me how you defend yourself.
Sure.
I just choose a firearm because, I'm a little gal, and I'm
not a little girl, and I agree with you.
a lot of the times, there's situations where I think you need a firearm with all the, going to like where we're from in Colorado, the Walmart guys come in with rifles and, the school shootings and all the things. Like, we just live in a time that's very serious, and, we need to take our own safety into our hands. I've always said that our law enforcement are great. I do law enforcement appreciation parties for those who serve, but our safety is ours, and it is up to us to take care of ourselves. And it's an honor and privilege to do that. So yes, I always say it was the training that saved my life, and it was a brave moment for me. It really brought in an inner, you think you can defend yourself, or you think you can do something, but until you're actually forced to pull the trigger,
Right.
you don't know. You don't know until I have a friend in the military who's like, I have military friends that I train with that couldn't pull the trigger to shoot somebody, right? And that's nothing against them.
Sure, of course.
But he's like, you were able to do it in the face of danger, and you did.
Moment.
And so it brought out some type of like strength that I didn't know that I had.
Interesting.
I always felt strong.
Sure.
I'm a strong
No, I get it.
personality, but a new level of strength where I'm like, yeah, I can pull the trigger, not on just that situation, but on life.
Right.
I can pull the trigger on life. So, your hits and your misses in life, yes, it can be life or death.
Sure.
But being able to pull the trigger and to do things in life, in business, and your personal, being the person that you want to be in life, all that is so important. You've got to be able to pull the trigger of life.
Yeah. And get on the bike.
And get on the bike.
I love that piece.
Or in the car, in the race car, however you want to.
Yeah. That's always kind of fun too, right? Gosh, like, I don't know how many times I've heard that story, either from you but secondhand, and it just gives me chills every single solitary. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing.
What? And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this very to the point, but days after, I was very foggy. I was struggling with, oh my gosh, I wasn't on, but I can't be perfect all the time. I can't be on all the time. I'm constantly on yellow alert, just to watching, I'm not like paranoid, but I'm paying attention all the time. And then, to not beat myself up, like, oh my gosh, I took that first step.
Yeah.
How did I do? I've trained for that, right? I think it's like somebody who's in addiction and they have a mess up, and then they beat themselves up and they're like, I had that drink, or I had that fix, or whatever that is. And then they'll stay in that spot. And I would say to that person, like, get back on the bike.
Get back on the bike.
Pull the trigger of life. It was one thing. I made the first step.
Yep.
I was able to defend my life. I got back in it. I was foggy for days. And I know I'm not making light of addiction at all.
No, I know you're not.
I'm just saying.
And you've been around a lot of
the
people.
same mental.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a badass maverick, and so many are, we just sometimes lose our way in life, and things that, weigh us down, or we let them get to us.
Right.
If you took that drink or that hit or whatever that is, just get back on the bike. You have so got this. You have rocked life. One setback, you just hold it up.
Yeah.
You look at it from different angles and go, yeah, I'm wiser now. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do that more skillfully. And then you just kick butt in my.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. So I was taking notes on a couple things. I just wanted to, like, my top nuggets are, the first one, and I guess the first two were kind of similar to each other, but it's just the training piece, right?
Yes.
To have that, like, in a life or death moment, you can't just rely on, you need the training to be able to protect yourself. And it could be said for, whether it's a life or death type situation or like anything, right? Like, there's a lot of metaphors in there for sure. Of course, the get back on the bike. That was my my second one, right? Like that'll stick around. I think between you and me, like every once in a while, one of us will say something and it just kind of sticks, right? Like the favorite hubs or whatever the piece is.
Tell your favorite hubs. Get back on the bike.
Right? I think that'll stick around. And then the other thing, and you and I totally agree on this, is to hang around big people, right? Like that was a big takeaway for me, is to, learn from and seek mentorship, right? Like there's so many people out there that love to help others, including you and me, right? So it's like, and there's others bigger than both of us that we can go seek and find. I think that is just huge to, having there, is just to hang around big people.
Absolutely. And we were created to be in relationships.
True.
So the more you hang out with people that will get you to the next level and you'll help others, so teach you to help others. So kind of train you up, and then you can pay it forward. It's kind of like you're coached and then you start coaching, right? Because you want to pay that back. You want to pour into people, but it's not even so much for me for the payback. It's just, it's kind of like the next step, what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, kind of a pay it forward thing. And people that are successful, generally speaking, like to see other people succeed. And if there's something we can do to sort of help.
We can share with that.
We can share. Yeah, for sure. So I'm like, I could go on for another 3 hours, I think, but I know you're busy, so I really appreciate you taking time to do this. How do people find you or connect with you?
Oh, yes. You can go to my website, which is dawnahetzler.com. So my name is Dawna, so Dawn with an A at the end, and then Hetzler.com. Okay. And I do a blog there. I've got my books there.
Cool.
And you can connect on the real estate side if you want to as well, but mostly the conferences and just kind of what I'm doing and where I'm at, what I'm struggling with. I do a lot of writing, and
I love that.
how am I struggling with this week, or, how do I want to better myself? So I'll put out a vlog whenever I feel inspired. I used to do it like 3 times a week, and I do about once a week now, but it's got to be something where it's worth saying. I don't ever want to do something where it's like, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to hit, so I've got to hit 3 times a week. I'm like, if it's not impactful to myself, it's not going to be impactful to somebody else. So you can find all sorts of fun stuff there. So.
Okay. DawnaHetzler.com. Go check that out. Thank you for taking the time. This was such an honor, and very blessed to be able to do this.
Oh, thanks for letting me collaborate with you. And Des, you bring me to the next level too. You're a badass maverick.
Boom.
Boom.
Props.
Bam.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Badass Mavericks. Remember that you have the potential and the superpower to achieve everything in life. All you must do is step out of your comfort zone, tap into your courageous self, and chase your dreams with a strong, positive mindset. For more inspiring conversations like this one, check out more episodes of the show at www.mavericklending.solutions.com. Do not stop this momentum of building the fulfilling life you truly deserve. That's all for now. See you on the next one.